opportunity. I don't agree with that notion. I don't agree that upward mobility is gone, but there is a sense that we've lost the ability for that, and I think your book addresses that. Look at you.
Well, I don't agree that it's gone either. In fact, I think the American people are extremely resilient. Our economy is extremely resilient, and it's proven that despite bad and unstable governmental policies, what it's been able to do despite that. Imagine if we had some good leadership and just a competent Congress and a competent political class, what it could be doing. But I do think it's not guaranteed. Upward mobility is something that is not guaranteed.
Earned.
Well, it's earned, and you have to recognize it for what it is and protect it for future generations. And sometimes I think when we talk about America and we talk about our economy, we forget the source of our greatness. And I think in our book I talk about the fact that my parents never made a lot of money. I don't think my parents ever owned a share of stock or owned a lot of real estate or anything of that nature. Yet I would say they lived the American dream because they allowed their children to have every opportunity they didn't. And that, as much as anything else, is a product of a both social environment but also an economic environment where those sorts of things are possible. And that's the essence of our greatness. Every country in the world has rich people. Every country in the world has big companies. What makes us different is that the son of a bartender and the son of a maid can do whatever he wants to do. He has the ability to do it.
One of the things that's frustrated me about the president is that he is a walking, breathing example of what's possible in this country. And he said that before. But a lot of the tone lately has been that it's not possible to do that anymore. There's this bifurcation between the haves and the have-nots, and the haves want to keep the have-nots down on the floor. And I think he has to walk a fine line because he's a living, breathing example of what's still possible.
Well, I think that rhetoric is a deliberate political decision. He's not going to win on his record. I mean, you can't run on his record and get reelected, so he's going to have to make the selection about something else. And I think what they've decided to do politically, and I think it's sad, is to divide Americans against each other, but in order to get to 51% in key states and be reelected. But there has been, I think people are frustrated with some of the results in a sense that maybe we can't get to where our parents got, that maybe our life is not going to be as good as the previous generations. But in order to ensure that it is, we have to re-embrace what it is that made us different. And again, in the book, that's what I try to outline through the story of my family. What made us, you know, I repeat, my parents were not wealthy people, never were. And yet I would say they were extremely successful because through their hard work and sacrifice had a purpose. And the purpose of it was to give their children the chance to do everything they didn't. Growing up, my parents never made us feel like there were things I couldn't do because of who they were. They never made me feel like, well, because we're a bartender and a maid, there are things we can't do. People like us don't do that
There's
stuff.
a notion that it's not a landowner society or a feudal society, but there's a notion that there is a class of people that have access to education that is not spread across all of the different groups in the United States.
Not just a notion. I mean, I think that it's absolutely true.
Right, and that this is not possible.
Well, educational achievement in the 21st century is the great divide. I mean,
and that's what we need to work on and figure out.
I mean, if you look at the unemployment rate between high school graduates and people that haven't finished, I mean, it's dramatically different.
Above 16%.
There are no jobs in the 21st century. Right. There really are no careers, much less well-paying jobs for anyone with just a high school diploma anymore. And the sooner we realize that, and our 21st century education system reflects that, the better. I mean, why have we stigmatized career education in this country? Why aren't we training kids to graduate with a high school diploma and an industry certification as an airplane engine mechanic or in one of the trades? Not every kid wants to go to college, but there are trades out there that pay well. And why don't we do that?
But discuss this upward mobility issue, because there's two issues here. One is what it's done politically, the haves and the have-nots, and what you could argue President Obama has argued, this idea of trying to divide people. But there is, in fact, numbers and statistics that would demonstrate that there really is an upward mobility problem in the country. Do you agree with that?
Well, I think there are people that are not getting the results they want for their hard work, but the reason why that's happening is not because some people are making too much money. The reasons why it's not happening many are socioeconomic. You've outlined one of them is educational impediments. But the other is how hard it is to make it. I mean, let's be clear. One of the things that has made us different economically is that you can quit your job, max out your credit card, and open up a business out of the spare bedroom of your home. Probably in violation of the zoning code, but you can do it. And government's job is to make it easier for people to be able to do that, not harder. And when you have a mountain of regulations, isn't going to hurt the big corporations that can hire the best lawyers and accountants in the world to navigate it. It's the guys that are trying to make it. It's the employee that's trying to become the employer that's held back by big government.
But Senator, as Andrew says, I mean, you can see tangible statistics that show there's rising levels of income inequality in America, and there's been growing sense that the rich are getting richer over the last decade. Does that worry you, or do you simply regard that as the price we paid for having a dynamic society in America today?
Well, it worries. The result worries me, but we have to look at what's the cause. Is the cause of that divide the fact that some people are just making more money and therefore there's less money for other people? Or is the cause of that divide the fact that the economy has evolved in America, that in the 21st century, in a service-oriented economy, it's different? 50 years ago, you could work you can live in a city and basically go work for the local plant and work there for 40 years and retire with a good pension. Those days are gone. Today, you've got to have the skills to do something in the service economy, and quite frankly, sometimes you're going to have to be retrained 2 or 3 times during your work.
So you think that's inevitable, that income inequality?
No, I don't think it's inevitable. I think it's the result of policies that don't reflect the 21st century.
In the recent headline of the net worth of the American family going down in the past 20 years from 139,000 to 79,000, when middle-class people, their home ownership is their main asset. If you get a 40% drop in home prices, people that have 11 homes, like I don't know, who was it? I think Bloomberg has 11 homes. That probably will hurt his net worth on the 11 homes, but he's got another $20 billion to back it up. So when you see, I would say a lot of the income disparity that has happened in the last couple of years is because of the housing bubble bust, right? That's the main asset that most of these people. But if you just look at the numbers, 79,000 versus 139, it looks like, oh my God, look what rich people did to these awful people. But it's really the housing bust.
But the big question people like the Senator are going to have to deal with is this a permanent shift in the American economy? Is what happened for the 2 or 3 decades after World War II an aberration? Or is it a case that actually it's possible to go back to much more equal society?
Depends on what we do, I guess.
Well, I think we can get back to better results for everybody. And again, I look back at my personal story to illustrate this. I repeat, my dad was a bartender. My mom worked as a maid and a cashier. They never made a lot of money. But here's what they did. They inspired us to dream and to reach high. They would never have accepted the idea that we would have gone into the same jobs that they did. They wanted us to do more. The reason why I've been able to do more, apart from the fact that I was born in this extraordinary country, is I went to college and got degrees, and so did my siblings. And that's really the evidence now proves that the more education you have, it's not a cliche. The higher educated you are, the more money you're going to make, the better off you're going to be.
We got to break into a commercial, and we'll come back and talk about this. But there is this separate issue, which is so many students now graduate from college. They think they've done what they're supposed. They've checked all the boxes.
Correct.
They're left with $30, $40, $50,000 of debt, and they say the system isn't working for me the way I thought. Right, and that's part of this whole American dream.
Doesn't help at 8% unemployment.
Well, there's not a lot of jobs for philosophy majors. I mean, that's the reality.
I think that's one of the points, that if the administration started at 7-8. Haven't quite been back there yet. Been above 8. It probably by November, we still may be above 8%.
Well, and I think the rate is probably
4 years above the original print in January of 2000.
Well, the rate is higher.
4 years above
the rate is higher when you take into account people that have dropped out and people that are underemployed.
And it's much higher than 8. But this is one of the first times where Clinton and Bush both averaged 5%. Clinton and Bush both averaged 5%.
And I'm not going to be political about it. The day he walked in the door, there was a fire in the House. To use the original number and then to talk about it in that context, I think is unfair.
Well, that's what the 800. The $800 billion was to make sure it didn't get any worse. Unfortunately, we've been above 7-8 for the entire time.
I don't disagree with you there. There's a lot that didn't work over the last.
We got a lot more to talk about. Immigration. I want to talk to you about. Did you see the Journal's piece yesterday about DeMint did the right thing, and you did the you did the sugar lobbying and went. Was that for the state?
Well, that's not accurate. First of all, I'm prepared right now to get rid of the U.S. sugar program when other countries do the same. In essence, all these other countries we trade with have quotas. They have their own protectionist programs. But what I'm not prepared to do is wipe out the U.S. sugar industry unilaterally in exchange for nothing.
Right, Marco, in your book, you talk about the Fonholes, Pepe and Amelia, and obviously they're probably friends. Could you vote to cut off sugar subsidies when it would affect the Fonholes?
They're importers too. I mean, they produce overseas as well. The truth is, though, that these other countries, Brazil and the Dominican Republic and others, have their own sugar programs. They're not going to get rid of their sugar programs because we get rid of ours.
Well, that was conflating something. DeMint voted against something that was going to benefit his state. And he
voted against the XM Bank, which I did too. South Carolina is one of the biggest recipients of it. Florida's number 2. I mean, Florida was a huge
And you voted against that,
and I voted against it. Listen, we should get rid of trade barriers. Let's go to the World Trade Organization. Let's go to international multilateral forums. Let's get rid of these trade barriers. But if you do it unilaterally, you're going to wipe out your own agriculture in exchange for nothing.
Wow, I want to see you and Biden in a debate. Is that possible? Can I see that?
Well,
that might not be. They might stop that after one round. I think they might. I don't know. Anyway.
We'll have more with the senator in just a